Have you ever wanted to stop doing something so badly, but it felt like your own brain was physically blocking you from stopping? You tell yourself, this is the last time. You throw everything away. You make a firm promise to yourself. You feel entirely motivated, but a few hours or days later, the cycle just repeats. For the longest time, I was trapped in this exact, exhausting loop with nicotine. I genuinely wanted to quit. I knew all the health risks. I knew it was costing me money, but my mind completely blocked me. It was not about a lack of willpower. It was a massive psychological wall that I simply could not climb over. Today, we're going to dive deeply into the psychology of why that wall exists. We will look at the groundbreaking work of Carl Jung, the hidden, dominating power of your unconscious mind, and how simply shifting your state of manifestation completely rewired my brain and destroyed my physical withdrawals. If you're enjoying this content and want to help others who have not found this video yet, I would be so grateful if you leave a like, drop a comment, and subscribe. Doing so helps the algorithm push this video to more people who might really be struggling and desperately need to hear this message. Society tells us a very specific, very damaging lie about addiction and bad habits. Society tells us that quitting is just a matter of discipline. They say you just need to be strong. They say you just need to push through the pain. But from a psychological standpoint, willpower is entirely a function of the conscious mind. Think of your conscious mind like the battery on your smartphone. When you wake up, it is fully charged. You feel ready to conquer the world. But as the day goes on, as you make decisions at work, as you deal with stress, as you navigate relationships, that battery slowly drains. By the time evening arrives, your conscious willpower is almost empty. In psychology, this phenomenon is called ego depletion. Your rational brain is simply too tired to fight anymore. Meanwhile, your addiction lives in a completely different part of your brain. It lives in the unconscious mind. The unconscious mind never sleeps. It does not have a battery that drains. It is automatic, it is primal, and it is incredibly powerful. Let me take you into how this actually played out for me. I was smoking, and I rationally knew I wanted to stop. But there was this massive, incredibly frustrating disconnect. My conscious, rational mind said stop, but my unconscious mind was running the show, and it was screaming no. I felt paralyzed by my own thoughts. I was literally fighting a war inside my own head, and I was losing every single day. I felt like a passenger in my own body. To understand why this happens to so many of us, why so many smart, capable people cannot break a simple habit, we have to talk about the Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung. Jung famously said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you'll call it fate." Think about that for a moment. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you'll think it is just your destiny to be stuck. That mental block I felt was not weakness. It was my unconscious mind doing exactly what it was programmed to do. More specifically, it was a part of the psyche that Jung called the shadow. In analytical psychology, we all have something called a persona. The persona is the ideal mask we wear for the world. It is the version of you that wants to be healthy, the version of you that wants to be productive, free from addiction, and in total control. But for every persona, there is a shadow. The shadow is the part of ourselves we hide, repress, or ignore. It holds our fears, our insecurities, and our unfiltered desires. When we're stressed, overwhelmed, or when our conscious battery is drained, our shadow self takes the wheel. It steps out of the darkness and looks for a quick release, a quick hit of dopamine, a way to self-soothe. My shadow was using nicotine as a coping mechanism. It was not trying to destroy my health. It was trying to protect me from stress in the only way it knew how. By forcing myself to quit with pure anger, discipline, or guilt, I was fighting my own shadow. And here is the ultimate psychological truth. In a fight against your own deeply rooted unconscious mind, the unconscious always wins. It is older, it is faster, and it is wired for survival. It treats your habit as a necessary tool for emotional regulation. When you rip that tool away without addressing the underlying emotional need, the unconscious mind panics. It sends massive signals of distress to your body, which you experience as intense cravings and withdrawals. Most people treat their bad habits like an enemy they need to conquer. They scream at themselves in the mirror. They use shame. They count the days they have been clean, treating every day like a painful battle. But your shadow is not evil. It is just a fragmented part of you looking for a way to cope with life. When I was stuck in that massive mental block, I realized my shadow was using nicotine as a heavy shield. So instead of fighting it, instead of using that draining willpower, I did what Carl Jung suggested. I practiced a clinical technique called active imagination. I stopped running from the craving. I literally sat down with that urge. I closed my eyes and I asked it a question. I did not say, "Go away, you are ruining my life." I approached it with curiosity. I asked my shadow, "What are you trying to give me right now? What are you protecting me from? Why do you feel we need this so badly?" When you stop treating your cravings as a moral failure and start viewing them as an urgent signal from your nervous system, the internal warfare stops. You realize something profound. You realize you do not actually need a cigarette or a vape. What you actually need is emotional regulation. You need a break from the noise. You need a moment to just let your guard down and breathe. The nicotine was just the messenger. Once I made peace with my shadow and understood what it actually wanted, I needed a way to completely rewire my brain. I needed to build a new identity. This is where the profound practice of manifestation bridges the gap with clinical psychology. But listen very closely, because most people do manifestation completely wrong. True manifestation is not about wishing for a future where you do not smoke. Wishing keeps your brain in a perpetual state of lacking. If you constantly say to yourself, "I'm trying to quit," or "I hope I stop soon," your brain focuses on the present reality that you are still a smoker who is struggling. You are affirming the struggle, not the freedom. You are telling your unconscious mind that the goal is always out of reach, somewhere in the distant future. You have to completely and entirely bypass the future tense. Some people call it getting lost in a daydream. I call it the most powerful manifestation tool you possess. I took my natural ability to daydream, to completely zone out and visualize things, and I anchored it entirely in the present moment. I stopped planning to quit. I began to deeply and obsessively immerse myself in the feeling of being a non-smoker right now, in this exact second. I did not say, "I will quit tomorrow." I fundamentally adopted the identity right then and there. I let my mind wander into a state where the addiction simply did not exist. While I walked down the street, I did not look at people smoking and feel a sense of deprivation. I did not feel jealous. I looked at them from the rock-solid identity of someone who simply does not do that anymore. I focused intensely on the feeling of clean air filling my lungs. I focused on the freedom of not having to check my pockets to make sure I had my nicotine. I focused on the calm state of my nervous system. You have to physically and emotionally embody the psychological state of the end result right now. Your unconscious mind, that massive powerhouse that controls your habits, cannot tell the difference between a vividly imagined present reality and a physical, external fact. By dreaming in the present, by letting yourself get lost in that new reality, you actually create new neural pathways in your brain. You rewrite the base code of your subconscious. And when the internal script changes, when your identity shifts at the core level, the external habit dissolves with absolutely zero effort. The psychological resistance just melts away. This profound psychological shift leads to what I call the moment of absolute alignment. This is the moment your conscious desires and your unconscious programming finally sync up. For years, you try to quit out of frustration, out of fear, or out of anger. You rely on friction. But when you do the shadow work, and when you manifest by living completely in the present identity of a non-smoker, you remove the friction. The internal battle ends. And then the enough moment happens. This is not a moment of forced discipline. It is a moment of pure, quiet clarity. When your conscious intent and your unconscious identity finally click into the same gear, the choice is made instantly. You do not need a long transition period. You do not need a tapered down schedule. One completely ordinary day, a switch just flipped in my brain. I looked at the habit, I said, enough, and I walked away. It was not a struggle. It was a simple, factual statement of my new reality. The reason my withdrawal symptoms were minimal was not an accident. It was not a fluke. It was because there was no emotional resistance left inside my nervous system. There was no part of my shadow mourning the loss of the habit. We were on the exact same page. The first few days of quitting are usually painted by society as a horrific, agonizing nightmare. We are told to expect intense physical pain, irritability, and unbearable cravings. But for me, the experience was entirely different. When I passed those first 48 hours and then hit the monumental milestone of 3 days clean, it felt nothing like the nightmare I had been promised. The physical addiction barely registered. My cognitive architecture had already moved on. It felt like shedding an old skin that simply no longer fit. Those first 3 days are crucial, but they do not have to be a battleground. When your mind is aligned, the physical sensation of withdrawal is reinterpreted by the brain. Instead of feeling like pain, it feels like healing. Every slight pang is just a reminder that the physical body is catching up to the new reality of the mind. I did not focus on what I was losing. I focused entirely on the massive expansion of my freedom. I allowed myself to daydream in the present moment over and over again, reinforcing the new neural pathways. If you're struggling with a habit, stop attacking the surface behavior. Do not waste your precious conscious energy fighting the symptom. Look at the shadow underneath. Make peace with it. Ask it what it needs. Then, stop telling yourself you're going to quit someday. Someday is an illusion. Start living in the present reality where you already have achieved your freedom. Let yourself daydream in the present tense. You're not broken. You do not have a defective brain. Your mind is incredibly powerful, more powerful than you can currently comprehend. Once you align it to work for you instead of against you, the physical withdrawals are nothing but a tiny whisper in the background of your new life. I want to transition now into a deeply practical exercise. We have discussed the theory, we have discussed the psychology, and now we're going to apply it. I'm going to guide you through a series of psychologically grounded affirmations. This is a manifestation tool designed specifically to bypass your conscious mind and speak directly to your unconscious. I want you to use this section of the video whenever your shadow tries to pull you back into old patterns. Whenever you feel the urge, whenever you feel the stress building up, come back to this exact moment. Listen to these words, but do not just hear them. You must feel them entirely in the present moment. Allow yourself to daydream and visualize the absolute truth of these statements. Let the frequency of these words wash over your nervous system, calming your body and rewriting your identity. If it is safe to do so, close your eyes. Take a deep, slow breath in through your nose, hold it for a moment, and exhale slowly through your mouth. Let go of the tension in your shoulders. Let go of the fight. 1. I am completely free from this habit, and my mind is at absolute peace. I no longer carry the weight of this addiction. My nervous system is calm, regulated, and perfectly balanced. The desire to engage in old behaviors simply does not exist in my current reality. I am breathing clean air, and my body is healing with every passing second. 2. I honor my shadow, but I no longer need to soothe it with things that do not serve me. I acknowledge the part of me that sought comfort, and I offer it compassion. I am safe. I am secure. I can process my emotions without relying on external substances. My shadow and I are no longer at war. We are aligned, and we are moving forward together in absolute harmony. 3. My conscious mind and my unconscious identity are perfectly aligned. I do not experience cognitive dissonance. There is no struggle within me. The decision has been made, the switch has been flipped, and the old version of me has gracefully faded away. I easily and naturally embody the identity of someone who is completely free. It requires no effort for me to remain in this state of liberation. 4. Every breath I take is clean, calm, and reinforces my freedom. I find deep, profound joy in the simple act of breathing. I am completely anchored in the present moment. I do not worry about the future, and I do not regret the past. I am here, right now, completely unbothered by old cravings. My mind is clear, my focus is sharp, and my willpower is absolute because it flows effortlessly from my true identity. Allow these words to settle deep into your subconscious. You can return to this state of being whenever you choose. It is always accessible to you. You hold the key to your own psychological liberation. You have the power to rewrite your story in the present moment. Trust your mind, trust your body, and trust the process of alignment. If you found value in this video and want to help spread this psychological framework to others who might be struggling in silence, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment down below sharing your own experiences. Tell me about your shadow. Tell me about your mental blocks, and tell me about the moment you finally decided you had enough. Building a community of shared understanding is incredibly powerful, and your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. It truly helps this video reach the people who need it most. Thank you so much for watching, for trusting me with your time, and I will see you in the next one.